Welcome to the My Amazon Guy podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Pope. I'm now joined by Gregg Rosenfield, former Clear Channel executive, owns his own media company, and has been dabbling with Amazon for the past 2 years. Gregg, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Stephen.
Well, Gregg, I think people are going to be really fascinated with your background as a media executive. Clear Channel, for those that don't know, owns dozens of television stations, about 1,000 radio stations, and has its arms in everything when it comes to media. So, Gregg, could you tell us a little bit about your background being executive at Clear Channel?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I was very fortunate in that I happen to be living in San Antonio, and Clear Channel is headquartered in San Antonio. So I was fortunate enough to work directly with the chairman of the board, Lowry Bays, the CEO of Clear Channel, and his sons and son-in-law. And, these are, just high-level executives, very shrewd individuals. And, Lowry started very poor, and he's a self-made billionaire. Of course, he cashed out of his position at Clear Channel, but, he went from Texas A&M and top of his class, Harvard MBA, and then eventually, started Clear Channel with another high-level executive, Brett Combs. So more than anything, I got a tremendous education there.
Great. So as I understand it, you had quite the operation going there. What was your org chart look like? How many employees reported into you, Gregg?
Well, at Clear Channel, there was probably 15 to 20,000. My division was the newspaper division called Prime Time. And I had about 250 to 275 employees. Probably direct reports, maybe about 15 to 17, which is a lot. So we had about 22 different sets of P&Ls. So each newspaper had its own P&L. Our buildings had their own P&Ls because we had our own real estate. Our other operations, like our printing facility, had its own set of P&Ls. So we did cash and accrual P&Ls. So we were looking at like 55 to 60 P&Ls every month. So,
that's a lot of data. I'm sure running a P&L can come in handy with running any business. What would you say to those that are listening? What was the most important thing when you're looking at data like that, the P&L data?
I think it's trends. What I think there's a few things you have to look at is, you have a plan and you put your budget together, and your budget goes down on paper, and then that's actual. So you have to look at budget to actual, and what did you plan for that month and what actually happened, and then there's a difference, either good or bad. And then, of course, you have to look at above the line and below the line. And so I think what was really fascinating is you might, scan through those P&Ls pretty quickly and see 2%, 3%, difference either way. But when you see something that's stuck out like 8, 10, 12%, then that would flag you. And then what I would do is I would ask my managers to look into that, understand the data. And then from there, they would say, okay, this is what happened. And the next question would always be, I understand what happened. Now, what's the plan? How are we going to course correct? And so that's what we were looking for, mostly trends.
On my last podcast, I talk a lot about Amazon being this technical thing. We got to troubleshoot constantly. Sounds like operating P&Ls when you were in charge of that was kind of the same thing.
It is. Amazon is, like all business, it really boils down to numbers. And the most important ones are, top line revenue. And then, it's easy to control expenses. I think the difficult part in Amazon, from my experience, is getting as much revenue as you can and filling up those buckets.
So why do you feel like that's the case? Like, walk me through some expenses you may have had to cull, some top line revenue you had to generate. What was the story behind those?
Okay, so as you know, in Amazon, there's four main models, which is um, wholesale, which is you're trying to find authorized suppliers to find you products, and you buy them wholesale and you sell them retail. Then there's retail arbitrage, where you go into stores and buy things and then post them on Amazon. And then there's online arbitrage, where you're looking online and trying to find products at retailers as well. And then the other one, of course, is private label, and you're making your own products and then trying to market those. Each of the four business models requires a different skill set. I think the first thing I had to do is I had to experiment a little bit and find which model was going to suit my skill set, but I think equally as importantly was suit my lifestyle. So I settled in on wholesale. That doesn't mean I'm going to stay with it forever or not supplement it, because at some point I do want to get into private label. And sorry about the phone.
You're fine. So when you first started out, did you dabble in retail arbitrage at all?
I did. Some people may not know, but Stephen has been my mentor and consultant for the last couple of years, and it's turned into a wonderful friendship. And it's funny because we've never shaken hands in person.
That's e-commerce for you.
Yeah, it's e-commerce world, but I truly consider him a close friend. And so Stephen's been mentoring me, and one of the things he did was try to assess my needs and what I was trying to accomplish. And then from there, he recommended different business models to me that he thought would work. But he had me try a little bit of everything just to be able to get a little touch of it, a little taste of it, so I could experience different concepts of it that would come in handy in any business model. So I've tried them all, and now you're helping me with the wholesale model.
So talk to me a little bit about the wholesale, and I appreciate the compliments there, and definitely, Greg, I see you as a close friend as well, and it's always good to hear about what's going on with your family and whatnot, as we followed each other's lives for the past couple of years. So talk to me about the wholesale specifically. What really has you interested mostly in that?
I think the great thing about it is it's scalable, and so what I had to do and how you counseled me is you asked me to write down some things, some overall objectives. And some of my overall objectives were to be able to not trading time for money, and having a business that was scalable and something that was, I could create passive income. And I think wholesale checks all those boxes. And the thing about it that I like is once you find good suppliers, it's really neat, because then you could just constantly reorder, just rinse and repeat. Obviously nothing is that easy. And the thing I like about Stephen versus some of the other, I call them so-called experts, is, they do a lot of videos with, girls and Ferraris, and Stephen is just a real down and dirty, down to earth guy that appearances aren't important to him, and being pretentious. It's all about helping you. And so that's one of the things that really appealed to me about Stephen, is I felt immediately the connection, and I felt how he always was doing things in my best interest to help me build my business based on what I was trying to accomplish, and not pushing his agenda. So I hope I've answered that question.
No, that's good. I appreciate that, Greg. So, what do you wish you had known when you first started out doing Amazon?
The big thing by far. So as an executive or somebody, whatever, in the C-suite, or somebody who's from the corporate arena, I was fortunate enough to where I had an IT person at my beck and call, and he was really great. And so anytime I needed anything, Daryl helped me turn on my computer. He would do that for me. So I got to the point where I'm thinking, you know what? I'm close to 60 years old at the time when I started, and probably I think 59 because I'm 61 right now. And I learned, this business is not necessarily for the young, but the people who are younger sometimes have an advantage. And so if you aren't good at IT issues, then you need to find someone like Stephen and his team that can help you. And, they do it to where it's cost effective enough to where I don't have to become an expert, but he's made me good enough and challenged me, held my hand and challenged me enough to where I had to get better. And so, yeah, you will, if you're not good at IT, you better learn how to be.
So what made you better? Was it watching YouTube videos? Was it listening to podcasts? Was it talking to others, getting coaching calls? What do you felt like got you better at it?
Well, I think part of it is two things. One is I'm pretty relentless. So I'll just keep trying and trying and trying and, figuring out how to do it and until I do it. But
good skill set for Amazon, by the way.
Yeah, it is. And I'm really not trying to indulge you or be, overly complimentary, but I will say one thing I also like about you is you really understand people's learning styles. And I think you figured out with me, the best way is step one, show me. Step two, let me do it and correct me. And then three, let me fly on my own and figure it out. And so, I think that's helped a lot I was also a professional trainer. I was a sales trainer for many years. And I've learned, there's different learning styles. There's 4 personality styles. And within personality styles, there's different learning styles. There's auditory, kinesthetic, there's visual learners. And so it's nice to have someone like you that will stop and understand everybody's strengths and weaknesses and work within, that system.
So in one of my next podcasts, I'm going to be talking a lot about practicing, not just pontificating. And I think you're speaking to that very well here in the sense that you've got to really go out and try again, and you're going to fail a lot. So Gregg, talk to me about some of your failures. What went wrong? Why did it go wrong?
Well, my failures, how much time do you have?
All right, let's pick 1 or 2 big failures that you wish that didn't happen. Let's go with that.
Let me quickly give you an analogy too, in terms of, let me speak to something that's really important in terms of, ready, aim, fire. Because in Amazon, you have to be a little bit fire, ready, aim. You really do. You have to just get out there and do it. And I've been a lifelong martial artist, and I used to know all the time when new guys would step on the mat, we would say something in Spanish called fresca carne, fresh meat. And we see these new people come in and they would say stuff like this. Well, for the first couple of weeks, I just want to stretch, learn a couple techniques. And finally, sensei would come up to them and say, okay, it's time to get in there. And they say, well, let me just, and then the next week they're gone. So, at some point you got to learn it's okay to get punched in the face because, like they say, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. Mike Tyson.
That's a good one.
So, yeah, you just have to learn. But one of the things that you taught me, Stephen, is if you're going to make a mistake, make a small mistake. So I'll give you a couple examples. I ordered some dolls, Barbie dolls, and I ordered a couple hundred of them. And boy, it was a really good buy and stuff like that. but what I didn't realize is those Barbie dolls they're gated, which means Amazon, the brand, wouldn't allow me to sell them without permission. And so I had to get permission, which cost me $1,000. So I probably would have made $1,000 profit, but it was all wiped out because I had to get ungated. So another one is, and it's pretty much along the same lines. I bought some shorts, and all of a sudden, I didn't realize Amazon jumped into the buy box, and then I had to liquidate those. So I was making $2-3 each pair of shorts. They were really beautiful, and I had to liquidate. So if you're going to make mistakes, it's okay to make mistakes, but I would say at the beginning, make small mistakes, because the regret of not buying enough is bad. The regret of buying too much is horrible.
It's way, way worse. Yeah, we typically, when we're talking about sourcing items and how much to make on your first order, go super small. Even 200 or less is totally fine. Sometimes as much as 40 and 50 at a time is good. And definitely when it comes to retail arbitrage or wholesale buys, under 50 for absolute sure, whenever possible. On my last 2 podcasts ago, I had an interview with Andre Lozovic, who owns New Wave Swim Buoy, and he started out with 40 off of Alibaba for his New Wave Swim Buoy. You also mentioned Mike Tyson. I want to give a little small plug. One of my clients happens to be Copper Gel. Mike Tyson is a part owner in Copper Gel, and they're actually one of my clients. So, they have an ice hemp product that you rub on to ease up the pain or knock out the pain, as Mike Tyson would say. So small plug for him. I did meet him through a Zoom recording session late last year, and I didn't know it was happening until it happened. So you never know what you're going to say to Mike Tyson until he's on camera, until you're punched in the face. So it happens. All right. So those are some good failures. You overcame the Barbie dolls by getting ungated. How did you overcome the short issue?
I followed your advice, and basically I was going to try. My thought was to wait it out and let Amazon, leave. And then you came in, you did some analysis and saw how many, Amazon had an amazing amount of shorts. And so you said, look, cut your losses. It's opportunity cost, because you're better off taking a quick loss and putting your money back into something that's profitable. So, you have to be willing to make mistakes, but don't make mistakes that that you can't live with.
I think one of the biggest mistakes a lot of sellers make, especially as they start to scale, is they get attached to their products. Yeah. And the products become personified to the extent that they're more than just a SKU, and they're almost a baby or a child in the family, and they're not. They never can be. A product life cycle, it's going to cut out after a couple of years. It's going to go away inevitably. Its death is already written on the walls. So sometimes that death comes in days or weeks instead of months or years, and you have to cut your losses. So I think those are some good examples. All right, so Gregg, what are you curious about right now? What has you interestingly researching that next thing to do on Amazon?
I think for me, the one thing I'm thinking about too is as you look at the world, you start to see how sometimes world events will obviously they affect the economy. So for me, I was thinking about the coronavirus and not necessarily taking advantage of it, but making sure that I'm positioned to where I'm okay. And so I started looking at what kind of products, if the economy goes bad, what kind of products should I be buying? And so
apparently toilet paper and hand sanitizer right now.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm not shaking hands right now, and it's not because of the coronavirus. It's because people are running out of toilet paper. So.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So.
All right. So what kind of products do you think would do well right now?
Well, obviously, it's things like masks and stuff like that. Just, I'll be honest, what bothers me is that people are gouging, and and it's just, that's not right. And I think I must say, I have to compliment Amazon and eBay and some of the other e-commerce platforms for cracking down on those people. Although some of them are buying it so high that they have to sell it high, which is too bad too.
So you don't think the free market will fix it over time? I mean, obviously short-term prices might go high, but if you're a seller and you could sell something for $50 right now versus the 20 it normally sells for, wouldn't you do it?
I don't think I would. Because I think a fair profit is a fair profit, and I'm not looking to take advantage of people. I'm not trying to preach, but I really don't want to take advantage of people. I think sales is beautiful, and it's really the most pure form of entrepreneurship. I just think a good salesperson doesn't take advantage. It's an exchange of equal benefit. And so if you really believe that $50 is a fair price, but you got to ask yourself, would you pay that price, And would you want someone taking advantage of you in that way? That's just my opinion.
I think the only thing I'll add to that is, if I was a seller and I had the choice between selling it for 50 or 20, I probably would take the 50 if I'm being honest. And if I couldn't sell for 50 on Amazon, I'm going to take it somewhere else. And then what that does, I think would happen is the consumer would then have no options. There wouldn't be any item available for sale. So I think that's the risk we run. But that is absolutely, we could definitely have an hour-long philosophical conversation just on that alone.
Right.
And with coronavirus, absolutely a black swan event that can affect everybody in many ways. Just recently, Italy locking down borders. It's getting crazy out there right now.
It is. And you know what? It gives me more reasons to be on Amazon, and it gives me more reasons to think of Amazon as a real business, because people can get laid off. People's retirements are, believe it or not, I mean, their net worth is being crushed right now. I mean, obviously things come back. I know people are panicking, but it's always nice to have a few more eggs, in the basket, and not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Plus, you don't have to leave the house when you're selling on Amazon, right?
Right. That's true.
Unless you have your own warehouse and staff and whatnot. But most people are hustling it. So, all right, cool. Well, Gregg, last question for you. What do you enjoy most about selling on Amazon?
Believe it or not, I'm not much of a shopper, but I'll sit there and my wife, Phyllis, will call me, and she'll say, "Are you coming to bed?" And I'm like, "Hold on." And I'm looking at spreadsheets and stuff, and all of a sudden I'll find one cool product that is profitable. And it's just really neat because it's like a treasure hunt, and it's like going hunting for Easter eggs or something. I think that's
big dopamine hit.
Really fun.
Definitely a big dopamine hit.
It is.
Well, Gregg, I appreciate you coming on and talking about your story and how you've interacted with Amazon. It was great talking with you today.
Okay. Hey, Stephen, can I give you my Mike Tyson interview or
sure.
my Mike Tyson?
Sure. Let's hear it.
Impression. Yeah. Ask me a question. I'll give you my Mike Tyson.
All right. What do you do in the ring?
Well, Stephen, I'll tell you what I do. Because when I get hit, I hit back.
I bet if Mike watched this, he'd probably appreciate it. I think he would.
I hope so.
In good favor. Otherwise, he might hit you back. So you got to be careful.
Yeah. There'd only be one hit. Yeah, that'd be it for me. So,
well, great. Thank you very much, Gregg. I appreciate you joining me. So that's our podcast today. That's the My Amazon Guys show. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to us. We're now on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and many others. And tell 3 other people about our podcast, other Amazon sellers. We thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Steve.